Call the meeting to order. Tiffany, please take the roll.
Councilwoman Garvey. Present. Councilman Brennan.
Present.
Councilman Bundy.
Present.
Councilman Green.
Present.
Mayor Sykes.
President, let the record reflect we do have a quorum for Wednesday, September 23rd, September 13th, 2023 at 3 p.m. We'll run down to item new business action deliberation decision on analysis of True Club solution regarding Desert Canyon Golf Course. Understanding. Okay. So with that, we will go with that, and then Tim, it's your show, my friend.
Nice show. Okay, well, before I get started, I want to thank everybody for giving me this opportunity and just kind of get a few housekeeping items out of the way. Has everybody had a chance to, has everybody received the report? Question number one.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Has everybody had a chance to read the report?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, two good starts. Well, I'll just briefly introduce myself, how we were involved in this project, really summarize some key points and takeaways I hope we can leave this call meeting with, and then answer any questions the council has about next steps. This is not a one and done where I attend this and then I disappear. So this is hopefully just the first of several interactions I have with you and the existing or future managers or concessionaires, if you will. All right, so my name is Tim Persecki. I'm the Director of Analytics and Operations for True Club Solutions, which is a subsidiary of Troon. Troon Golf, based out of Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm based out of Chicago. Troon manages 575 golf courses across 45 states and 30 countries, 140 of those being municipally owned entities, primarily through our Indigo Sports brand. And that's where I pulled for the study. So a little bit of awesome.
Can we, on your computer, can we do the Bluetooth one? Because we had this problem today with, hang on a second, Tim, we have
Sorry,
some.
Tim. Technical difficulty.
No problem.
Because we had that problem today with our Blue Cross, or Blue Shield Academy.
Where's that at?
It would cut in, cut out.
Say every time it did disconnect, it reconnected within a minute, or what, 10 seconds?
Yeah.
Last time I did Baytello, it didn't work on me. Where would that go?
They hit accept.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you need to hit accept on the.
You want to go tap it on the TV, see if that'll work?
Oh, in the corner. I'm looking at the screen. I'm sorry.
I'm just barely tall enough.
Okay. Are we back on?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You want to put that microphone as close to your microphone?
Okay, give it a try again, Tim.
Okay, can you hear me? I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
I've heard you. Can you hear me?
You guys hear him?
Now turn yours up if you can.
That's as loud as it'll
how it
go.
goes?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right, Tim.
So,
All right. All right. I rambled about myself for 2 minutes, and you didn't miss anything. And so now, more importantly, about the city of Mountain Home and Desert Canyon. If you did happen to miss it, Tim Persecki, part of Troon, based out of Chicago. Troon manages 535. Yada yada. Yeah. More importantly, on your golf course. So I was contacted by Mayor Sykes to really have two main, what I viewed as two main deliverables. Give the city council a context around the historical financial performance of the existing operation. Secondarily, how to create a sustainable operating future for the golf course. And the one main takeaway I would appreciate from this call, at least with this working session, is how do we define sustainability? That's one of my asks. I hope we can discuss either now or on the next call. But if we can leave this call with defining what that means to this council, I think that'll go a long way toward the next meeting. So to summarize the report, I'll just hit the high notes and then get right to the meat of your questions. Most of my data is going back from 2016. I believe the current course manager has been there from 2014. But 2016 to now was certainly would suffice for a historical analysis. Overall, the trends are very positive. That's what I would say since 2016. Revenue is up 76%. Rounds are up 20%. ADR, which is how we measure as average daily rate, that's up 44%. As it relates to the city's expenses for the golf course, they've been amazingly stable at roughly, only increasing 2%, not annually, overall, in that time period. So looking backward, when I started this analysis, I looked at 2022, that's where I started, and I had a few red flags. But then when I had the historical context of 2016, the course has made many great strides, and I think the main takeaway being it was in a very bad situation in 2016. It's in a less bad situation now with the momentum of golf overall, and then there have been various rate increases, and there's still some room to go. As I believe I summarized in the score analysis, I think this is definitely a rate and revenue issue. The expense model is quite lean in all regards. I think the maintenance expenses as it relates to the city are very much in line with what we see at our facilities. As it relates to the golf side, from the golf operations and the course manager, they're operating very leanly, and they're squeezing what I believe as much as they can out of what they have. So this really is a revenue issue, and that I would say the rates are still significantly under market. That's not always a bad thing when it comes to municipal golf, if the city is willing to subsidize it and view it as a benefit to the community. But I would say if this were a privately owned entity with an individual owner, this rate structure would not be sustainable for them to maintain a profit on the golf course. So I would say, historically speaking, good progress, financially stable expenses. Significant changes will need to be made on the revenue side in order to create any sort of future sustainability for this golf course, if any desired change is made. One note on the food and beverage, though relatively minor in this, I did not have insight, nor were they obliged to provide me with their annual revenue. So as you'll see in the report, I simply provided a benchmark of what our typical relationships and structures look like, but I could not apply or project what that percentage would relate to as to the golf course because I don't have a total revenue number. So I hope that those are the very high level points. I'd much rather understand where the council's points of concerns are, or where they'd like me to dig deeper into to kind of explain how I went about the analysis or where we go from here.
Council?
Mayor, any chance you'd be willing to waive Robert's rules?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let the record reflect that I'm gonna waive the Robert's Rules of Order so council can fire out as many questions they want to Tim as possible. So
I'm ready.
All right, Councilman Bennett?
Can we put on the record too that TJ Gomez is not present for today's meeting?
Yep. Let the record reflect that TJ is not here today. So, council, what kind of questions you got for Tim?
I guess I'll just fire away. Tim, I don't really have a question immediately, but I see that a lot of the writing in here is designed for a potential goal of the course being self-sustained. That is not like an immediate goal of mine personally. Like it has to happen right now this year. I think it's a great goal to aim for, and I don't know the appropriate time frame to for us to make small but measurable steps to get there. But I don't think it's realistic to say next year we're going to be there.
No, I would agree with I would agree with you. I would say if the city, even Mr. Gomez's, as I noted, even Mr. Gomez's proposed rate increases, which would be elevated even at our own courses. I would say they would be aggressive, and what I was encouraged to see that. But even at those rate increases, progress would be made, certainly, and on the revenue side, but I think Mr. Gomez or whoever the golf manager would need to make significant progress. There are going to be some hard decisions made, especially as it relates to what I used in quotes as revenue loss opportunities, especially trail fees, folks storing their carts at the facility. Mr. Gomez even I did speak with him. He had expressed some frustration in terms of certainly people gaming the system where, say, they pay an annual trail fee, they own their cart, and then their friends use their cart as well with their annual trail fee. So that's just another example of revenue loss opportunity that you could, if you mitigated those or brought those rules in, that could be another way. If you complemented Mr. Gomez's rate increases with some of these loss, if you kind of stopped the bleed in those realms, that could complement it as well.
And as far as the rate increase proposals that you brought up, I don't want to quote you by any means, but somewhere in this report you state that it might be a good idea to maybe combine or make less rate types of rates. And as I look through
consolidate the rate structures.
As I look through the report and the potential rate increase requests, we are a military town through and through, and I'm curious about the revenue loss by having the discounted rates for military and senior members of the community.
I think that so those are two very different demographics.
Right.
I don't want to bundle them. I know that they're separate there. Now let me look. I saw the rate increases for military, certainly, and if I pull up the actual historical, I want to quantify for you what percentage of rounds military discounts actually account for the whole, to show how significant it is to the analysis.
While you're pulling that up, you put a note in here that there are more rate categories on the sheet than in the POS system, and so I'd like to know more about that. How many of our rates are not being tracked?
Yeah, can everybody see the screen if I were able to share it?
Probably, yeah.
I can summarize too. So to put in context for 2022, and I'm going off of the data titled 2022 Departmental Intake Detail. Military rounds accounted for roughly 1,000 of the 16,000 total rounds. So, I mean, it's not nothing, but I don't think that eliminating military discount is not going, and of the total revenue, of the $168,000 in greens fees, those roughly 1,000 rounds accounted for approximately $18,000 of the $168,000. So it's the political football I wouldn't necessarily kick around if that's significant to the city. That's not where you're losing your money, is on the military discounts. I would target season passes, which I, at first glance, was quite critical of, but seeing the progress that was made in terms of the yield per season pass, it's trending in a positive direction. I'd say that people 6-7 years ago were taking significant advantage of the season pass program. Little less so now. I'd love if that could go up. Season pass holders, though, are vital they're certainly from not just on the revenue standpoint, but they're creating culture. Hopefully they're bringing friends and things like that. It's a sensitive topic, but the season pass is still relatively underpriced for the market. It still represents a good value, slightly less value taking advantage of now than 6 years ago, but still a very good value.
So really quick, Council, I didn't put on here a declaration of conflicting. I did receive an email yesterday from Terry Manduca with a synopsis of surrounding courses and kind of think there was, I don't have my computer with me, probably 6 or 7. 6, yeah, on there. So I just wanted to clarify that we did get that as we talk about season passes. So
I would say I got the same email.
okay.
Does that help you? I mean, so if military discount consolidation or elimination is not gonna get you to your goal, that's not where I would focus my attention. It would be far down the list of components I would fix, especially within that. If anything, it's the season pass.
So
Where would you constitute a good number? Is it, so, can I see your paper real quick, Mr.
the
Councilman
one
Green?
from Terry.
From Terry? So, season pass at, let's see here, there's one for $1,750, one at $1,200, one's $450, and another one is $1,200, and then one's a dual course, one's Caldwell, one is Centennial, one is Ridgecrest, and then obviously Desert King. So I guess there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total. So what would you recommend as a good, I guess, fair? Is it $850? Is it $9? You're the subject matter expert, not.
Yeah. So if I had to reverse engineer it and look at the historical utilization of season passes, which is what I did from 2016 to now, the season pass holder rounds, in terms of rounds per user, have actually gone down. 7 years ago, the average season pass holder was playing 63 times, and they were yielding only $9.71 a round. Last year, influx of season pass holders, and that number has actually shrunk in half. The average season pass holder is now playing 32 times per year at an average rate of 16. I would like that rate to be somewhere in the, at least, I understand if you want to show value, but I would like that rate to be somewhere in the 20 to 25 range. So if you use that number, 32 rounds per year on the high end, say at 25 per round, you're looking at $800. That's still I think that's still very reasonable. It represents a greater value than the current ADR, and it's bumping you up closer toward your goal.
Okay. And then the fees, they were, like you said, they were minimal and incremental. They were, a few bucks here, a few bucks there. And then if you were to take that same page, they were, maybe instead of it was a $3 raise, it was maybe $5, or instead of 22, it went to 20. What was it? 20.
At the high end. So on your highest rate,
So
the
48.
highest rate increase he was proposing was a 25% increase, and that was applied to military, senior, low 20s in the seniors. And the highest rate was a recommended increase of 11%.
So, Tim, what would you say would be the biggest three to help drive revenue as far as for changes?
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing. Could you please repeat that?
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest three changes that we should make in order to drive revenue?
three changes, is it, if I heard it?
Yeah.
Biggest three changes. Okay. Optimize the season pass program. Eliminate the trail fee. The combination answer. Optimize the cart policy. I would say that is a broad statement, but optimize your cart policy. Implement an online point of sale T-sheet so that all revenue, we are confident that all revenue is being recognized and moved through the system. Those would be your three immediate revenue generating increases without significant customer pushback. I went to an extreme example just to play out some scenarios to say that revenue would have to increase 70% to get that break-even, hypothetical break-even status. Those aren't going to achieve that, but it will bring you closer to where you want to head, or reduce your subsidy, if you will.
Thank you.
Tim,
Yes.
I know you cannot see me up here. I'm over here on the end. Can you further explain what you mean by optimize the carts?
So
That's minus
I
getting
think
rid of the
this
sheds?
would fall under this would fall under that revenue loss category that I mentioned in the opportunities. So right now, Mr. Gomez owns most of the carts and realizes most of that revenue. But even what I saw when I did visit the course is that folks are paying an annual trail fee, which ranges from I think $375 to $475, and that basically gives them the opportunity to use their cart with no revenue aside from that trail fee being recognized
So
to
Tim,
the course.
did you recognize the cart shed rentals?
I think that provides a significant risk to the city to maintain that the cart shed, that the people bringing their carts to the course, that entire situation, I believe needs to be, I mentioned in the report, likely grandfathered out. Not to say you're kicking everybody out, but I would, as people do not renew those cart shed rentals, I would not refill them with folks renting that space. I think that will drive more revenue. Carts are so easy to generate revenue from. If the course were to own, if the city were to own them, right now that revenue is going through Mr. Gomez, which is fine. He's also taking the responsibility for them. But that would be part of that optimize the cart policy.
What liability do you feel the city's taking by having the cart sheds?
Well, you're housing people's personal property on city's property, so I'd say twofold. If they're gas carts, there's environmental risk with their potential gas leakage, as well as lithium-ion batteries. There's potential for, we don't know how those carts are maintained. This is extreme examples. But there's any risk to their cart that happens within the shed or the storage garage, is the onus is on the city. It's just something that we're moving away from as an industry in general, as a way to remove risk from owners. Is we like all revenue to flow through the city and on a per use basis, not a for the season basis. Because people do math and tend to take advantage of the system.
So Tim, also, I want to kind of maybe reiterate what you're saying in a, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, obviously, but I think a lot of what I'm hearing is that the rates and the revenue is not necessarily a Golf Pro problem.
No, not necessarily. No, I would not say.
So I think the city needs to take action.
I would not say that's his problem at all.
Yeah. Okay. And that we need to probably take some action more on our side as far as increasing fees, which we haven't done for about 4 years.
Correct, and I believe the policy is right now, anything greater than 4.9% has to get
Yeah.
approval. I think yes. If I were to summarize, increase fees is the way. That's a broad statement, but
Privacy
that is
contents
the way
have been updated.
to improve
To continue.
this.
Down over there, calm down.
If fees have gone up ever, so and are dynamically priced. I know the city can't implement a dynamic pricing model based on its policy, but customers, especially in the golf space, are used to increasing prices. In a smaller town, I understand that can be sensitive. And the city has done, both the city, I should say particularly on the city, for the expenses to have been maintained at only 2% over 8 years is awesome. Based on how much supplies have increased with inflation costs. But I know everything else is going up in cost as well. We have followed suit with increasing rates. Folks are getting used to it, and labor is more expensive as well. And I think everybody needs to kind of do their part in terms of paying up for that. Customers at Desert Canyon are getting a tremendous value. They have been for a while. If the city's goal is to move to less of a subsidy, the customers particularly are going to have to pay that price.
And also, Tim, I want to point out a couple things about the golf course. I think it's maintained a 2% increase because there hasn't been any significant capital improvements to the course or to the clubhouse or to any of that since the sprinkler system, which was quite costly. This past year we did a roof project, but that wasn't a huge project. So I think it's easy to point out and applaud a 2% increase over the last 10 years, but when you actually look at what's physically been put into the course, I mean, we're not putting much into the overall improvement of the course. Thankfully, we have excellent employees down there, and they maintain the course, and we have a great group of volunteers that also do a lot of the work. So I think it's important to look at the bigger picture, too. It's not just been 2% because we're doing a good job with our budget.
Understandable. It's, and that is something that's taken into account too. I'd say how Mr. Gomez summarized it was he was very complimentary of the superintendent, the conditions of the course, basically saying that they are squeezing a lot of juice out of the fruit that they have. Is kind of how he weren't his exact words, but that was what he was getting at, and I saw that too. It was amazing to see the product that was being put out for the maintenance budget that the team has to work with.
Tim, you said the POS system, and you gave us obviously 3 or 4 to choose from. 1, what's the best bang for our buck? 2, what's going to give us the best reporting? And 3, is there one better than the other when it comes to putting everything in there? Because you were out, obviously, in hearing your report, you said something about everything needs to go through POS system. So is there one that you would say, hey, this is the one that does everything the best, I guess?
Yeah, all the ones I listed are very good. But from a municipal standpoint, what we've seen is the Golf Now /G1 platform is one of the most comprehensive, especially for municipalities. There's multiple ways that can be structured in terms of cost. Always have to be careful with Golf Now in terms of trade times, if you will. Sometimes the platform can be provided at nearly no cost in exchange for a quantity of trade times or hot deals, if you were, if you're a golfer. We would look into a different structure and can provide a structure to the city as to how to frame that agreement if they wanted to go with Golf Now. But that would be the most comprehensive. It's cloud-based. It provides transparency. Tournaments and everything like that can be booked through that platform as well. That would be my recommendation. That's the one I have the most familiarity and experience with. And also with that, I know TJ or whoever the golf manager in the city may have their own procurement system, but with that, you do get access to Golf Now, NBC's broader procurement platform too. So that can help if the food and beverage vendor wanted to take advantage of that. They work through US Foods, so they get NBC's procurement buying power at the scale of Desert Canyon. So you're able to reduce your food costs in that regard. There's multiple maintenance and golf course related expenses TJ could take advantage of. And that's why the technologies are all very good, but the ancillary benefits you get with something like Golf Now and G1, I think could benefit both vendors at the course.
So Tim, let me recapitulate that. So, sorry, wrong choice of words. So this will not only help the concessionaire, and it'll help the Golf Pro, it'll help the whole platform base. It's cloud-based. I can make a tee time online, get there, pay, I can pay online. It's all ran through that one platform.
It is.
So,
Correct. Yep, they do have payments, inventory. TJ could utilize an inventory system that they have as well. It's all in one system.
okay. And then the concessionaire, the food concessionaire, they can just make it sure they can utilize this platform.
They could, depending on their structure, they might have their own point of sale system with the Curly's at the downtown location. Maybe they don't want to have two different ones, but yes, they could use that system as well. If a new agreement was structured based on percentage of revenue, I'd highly recommend they use the same point of sale system so the city there'd be no ambiguity as to how much revenue was received. It'd be right in the point of sale.
Okay.
I have a question about the POS system. And Tiffany, I might call on your knowledge to help me with this. Is we had an issue a year or two ago with keeping track of TJ's finances with our one credit card platform, where they were kind of like guessing as to how much of the money was the city's and how much of it was his out of the pro shop. Do you remember something like that?
Yeah, if I can remember right, it was a September meeting, they talked about some of the city charges, then then like a day or two later he would reconcile his books. If he overcharged like on behalf of the city side, then he would adjust the credit card terminal rather than charging the individual. My understanding is rather than charging the individual two purchases, one to the city and one to Mr. Gomez, he made one large purchase and then he would reconcile books at either a later date if it didn't wash out at the end of the night.
If it didn't wash out. Now, Tim, does this, I don't know really what caused that error or that issue, but this new POS system you're recommending, does that fix that? Could he do one transaction or?
I think that leads more into the structure of what the ultimate structure would be. So say if I'm a golfer, I come in and I pay for my round, that revenue goes to the city. I buy a shirt, that revenue goes to Mr. Gomez. I believe that would likely go into all one account, preferably the city's account, and then that would get debited out to Mr. Gomez from that system. I would have to, that's something an engineer at NBC Sports and Golf Now could answer for you though, as to how that's set up.
Okay. And would that have anything to do with 2.5 times like market normal for pro shop sales?
I'm sorry. So the sales overall are relatively low. I think he is pumping a good amount of revenue through that little, basically 125 square foot shop. I think he's incentivized to do so. He seems to be doing a good job. A good portion of that is in the custom club and fitting business. The margins on there are a little bit less, but the revenue is significant. I think what he has going for him is that there is little to no other option locally for that to occur. I think he could get even. He mentioned he is struggling. I talked about cost of sales with him. the way he has to buy equipment and merchandise is significantly different than how Truden's able to purchase it. So he has to buy, in order to get per unit cost breaks, he has to buy significant quantities, whereas Truden is able to get those same cost breaks without having to buy 200 dozen at once. And so that's where he's struggling a bit. I think if he were able to gain the procurement assistance of something like a Golf Now, that might help bring that pressure down a bit.
I mean, I guess, I don't know how I'm trying to ask what I'm asking, but should Pro Shop sales be on the Mountain Homes POS system or an entirely separate system? Since he's going to maintain 100% right of everything that's sold out of the Pro Shop, should it be on the same system or separate?
We're shifting toward a common system overall. This talks about the structure too, but the way it's currently structured would be considered old. The Pro Shop separate, the Pro owning the shop is at this point considered quite antiquated. Overall, I'd recommend everything flow through the city. That would be my recommendation. You could have two point-of-sale systems where it's his and the city's. I just think you're going to run into a lot of reporting issues. The city's not owed anything from his merchandise sale, so if he's running it through himself, it's fine. I just don't think you get an insight as to the overall money flowing through the operation when it's separated.
Tim, our auditor said that we weren't supposed to commingle money. So how do we, obviously we have a contractor and then municipal finance, right? So I guess at the end of the day, how do we not commingle funds?
So in the future structure, if it is deemed where he will still own the merchandise, he will have to ring it in separately. Whether that's two accounts, so potentially how this could work with NBC. Maybe there are just two accounts under the same point of sale system. So you log in the tea time with the city's account, switch accounts, and it's all digital. Switch accounts, TJ's account, ring in the merchandise. The customer, it might be a little wonky from customer experience, but to keep things clean, that's how it could be done from an account. It's an online account. Much like if you were on social media, you switch between professional and personal accounts within the same platform.
And truly, we're only talking the sales of physical merchandise out of the Pro Shop. We're not talking trail fees, anything like that, right?
Correct. Yep, that's what I'm referencing. Yeah.
Tim?
Yep.
Quick question. On your point of sale system, you talked about tournaments and those types of things going through. So you don't think that would make a little bit of an accounting nightmare for the city? And how long would they have to wait, the company or organization have to wait for their, say, donations or, I don't know, because we have to approve all the finances and or all the checks, that get written out of the city.
I would say that's assuming the structure stays the same, just with one common point of sale system. So your question would be, assuming the existing structure, moving to one point of sale system. Right now, it's just messy. I pointed that out in the report, is that the way tournaments, so typically it should be structured from charities. Say, for example, it's a charitable organization organizing a tournament. The charity would agree with TJ. We are going to charge, TJ will charge each patron $20 for their entry into the fee. The charity agrees to that with TJ ahead of time. Then the charity takes in all the money for the tournament, ends up paying TJ as an expense. TJ gets his money, charity has their money, and then if there's anything that is due to the city should be rung up for that, or TJ would debit the city out of his funds. That's how it should be done.
And that is almost how it is done, to a T. I've ran a lot of golf tournaments. It means
Okay, that's not how it was explained to me. That's great.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much how it is run. It may look messy, and I think it looks messy because it's literally probably a lot of times written out and double-checked on a piece of paper versus an Excel spreadsheet or a point-of-sale system, but that is really how it is done. And the city always will realize something because we have greens fees, right? So the city's always going to get something regardless, and that's worked out to each individual charity operation, Tiger Open, whatever it may be, Lions Club, you name it. It is worked out that way. Could there be an easier method? Sure. But it is done that way. It just so happens that TJ's nice enough to do a lot of the legwork and the check cutting.
That's nice.
So it is
I
done that way.
apologize. That's just not how it was explained to me.
Yeah, no, that's
great.
fine. I think that's why we're here, right? That's why we're workshopping this.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim, can you explain how
And that was from TJ too. So just to
Yeah.
where I was getting
Yeah.
that from.
Can you explain how it was explained to, or can you kind of reiterate how it was explained to you?
The tournament, one point to note, when I was looking through the reports, the revenue reports, I first said tournaments, TJ was recognizing $176,000 in lessons. So, wow, he is the best teacher in probably the Mountain Time Zone. Amazing. And I asked TJ, how are you doing that much in lessons? He said, well, those aren't lessons, those are tournaments. Like, well, TJ, you gotta recognize, so if anybody is looking at a point of sale, they would assume those are lessons. They're just not coded. There's a lot of back-end accounting that isn't on the whole hurting a lot of stuff, but it's reducing the transparency into the operation. So after discussing with him, I realized only 10% of that, what was deemed as lessons, was actually lessons. The rest were tournaments. Of that, a portion actually was allocated to food and beverage, and a portion went to charitable organizations. So just things like that were causing some reduced transparency into the operation. So how it was explained to me was that TJ comes to an agreement and the revenue comes through him. He calculates how much he agreed to with the charity. He cuts a check to the charity, and then any check to any other food and beverage outfit. That's how it was explained to me.
That's what I just
Thank you.
Tim?
That's not my recommendation. That wouldn't be my recommendation, though. It would be everything should come through the charity. All revenue. So I book I'm the charitable tournament organizer. I'm creating a tournament for a charity. I agree with TJ at $20 a round. I am charging patrons $100 a round. They're paying me $100. I'm paying TJ $20. I'm netting $80 to my charitable organization. That's how that would be a recommendation on how it's structured. It's not going through TJ. It ultimately gets to him as a result of what we agreed to, but me as a charitable tournament organizer, I'm recognizing the revenue, I'm holding on to it and paying TJ what I agreed to on a per person basis. So I'm not waiting to receive a check from TJ or the city. I'm getting that revenue and only paying TJ the expenses, netting the difference.
So
I understand the difference between the two. But why the charity getting the money first versus TJ getting the money first? Why is the recommendation the one side of that?
Just one less person to have to. We don't have to worry about accounting on the golf manager side to do that. If the charity's running the tournament, they recognize the revenue first, and it's on them to pay TJ what they agreed to, and there's no ambiguity as to, well, TJ didn't pay us what he told us or anything like that. TJ's just charging the charity what they agreed to as a tournament per person fee.
So it's cleaner because
Less cash handling.
yeah, okay. It's cleaner because we're only going to document the incoming $20. We're not going to
That's
say
right.
we got 100 and we got rid of.
It's unnecessary accounting.
Okay.
Because that money never should have even gone through the course anyway. That was the charity's money. Only 20 of that $100 should have been going to the course anyway, not 100, debiting out 80.
But Tim,
my example.
Tim, can you explain to me why that would matter up on the, from the city's perspective? It's mostly for TJ's accounting perspective, not the city's, because it doesn't go through the city. So
I'm just talking about best practices.
okay, I want to make that clear. I just want to make that clear. So it doesn't matter to the city. It's not an audit issue for the city. It's not an audit issue. It's an audit issue for TJ Gomez or the golf manager, whomever that might be. So I appreciate the best practice discussion. However, when we're discussing how TJ does his books, I don't think that's up for us to decide. It's not for us to decide how TJ does his books. I understand a suggestion of cleaning up your books, but TJ didn't ask for that suggestion. So I just think that we need to stick to the focus of increasing our revenue and why we came to this True Club Solutions ask. We didn't ask TJ to clean up his books, so I just
The reason it came up, I should say, is because it was coded as lessons.
I understand that. I understand
That's the whole reason that came up.
I understand that. I agree. When I looked at his books, I thought, holy smokes, I agree with you. However, and it could be cleaned up, but you know what? That's what works for him. And if there's not an issue with the city or our auditors or our legal counsel, then why is that even a discussion topic? Because what he does with the charity is not for us to decide. He's the one deciding that, and we haven't put parameters around how he operates golf tournaments. So I just want to make sure that we stick to the focus of why we hired you guys, and not to delve into his bookkeeping skills or lack thereof.
I would say that was not the focus of my report. It was a commentary on best practice.
Okay.
That's not reallocating how you account for tournament expenses is not going to drive your revenue.
And that's where I want to stick
But
to the focus.
All right, you gave us 3 synopsises for the operating structure. You gave us the course maintenance, or third-party management lease, or a hybrid. Obviously, the concessions. We didn't get no numbers or any of that. So, here moving forward, what's your synopsis of the 3? Lease, third party, hybrid, continue to do what we're doing?
I think it depends on the city's goals. That before I answer that is what is the city okay with status quo? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Right.
That really, so before I can answer that, it so much depends on the city's goal. If it's fine with how it's operating and fine with the subsidy, keep doing what you're doing. If the subsidy is a problem, there are ways we can change the existing structure but maintain elements of it, which I believe is that option. Next step 1. How did I phrase
Option A.
it? Was that scenario A, tweaking the current operating structure. If the city wants more control or transparency in the operation, I would explore bringing everybody into be considered the self-operated model, where everybody becomes a city employee. Now that doesn't come with, it's not all roses. Every labor cost would go up, and in my rough scenarios, I recommended increasing golf payroll to help the manager with customer service, the point of sale system, all the stuff that would help elevate and substantiate an elevated rate. And so to just charge, it's a hard situation where to just increase rates with no apparent difference in the product, the customer is going to balk a bit. With the city has the benefit of not having a bunch of alternative options. People can drive and they may drive to other options. But it all depends on how the city wants to go about it. If the city is willing to commit to some increased payroll on the golf side or increased support to elevate the customer experience, it can easily substantiate a significant rate increase if the overall experience is increased.
Tim? I got it. So you said something at the beginning that I thought was interesting, where it seems like we seem to be pretty unified in our need to increase our fees and to look at some season pass numbers and things like that. And that for us to break even, so to speak, we would have to raise the fees quite a bit more. And if we don't do that, we can view the golf course as an amenity for the citizens, which I tend to favor, where we want to keep our fees at a rate that are still affordable, but we can also reduce this delta with some increased fees. So I like the idea of us still using the golf course as an amenity with some subsidy. I think what we also are looking at here is a process that allows us to create a budget so that we know at the beginning of the budget year how much we're going to spend, and at the end of the budget year, we're pretty close to that number. I think what we've got right now is a scenario, and this is nobody's fault and no directed at anybody, because if we look at the data, we can see that since TJ's been the pro, that our play's gone up and it's improving, and I think that's great and should be rewarded. But I do think that we're looking at an increased fee, and I'm getting there to my question. So you've got your scenario A and your scenario B. In the municipal golf world today, which of those scenarios seems to be more prevalent? Which seems to be more successful? What are your observations on those scenarios of tweaking our operating procedure or possibly going to the city absorbing personnel costs and things like that?
My answer would be more towards scenario B, but overall, there would have elements of a loss to it. So self-operated model, typically where we are seeing the golf course municipal world going, it tends to favor self-operation, where everybody is the city employee. And in some instances, I worked several years ago, the subsidy ranges anywhere from nearly break even to subsidizing the operation to the tune of $750,000, all depending on the narrative of the benefit to the city and the quality of the course. We typically see third-party management where everybody would be not advocating for this in any way, but using us as an example. The city would offload the management to a third-party manager like Troon. All employees become the employees of the third-party manager. That typically can help reduce the taxes and benefits burden that cities typically have. So typically it's a much richer benefits offering when they're city employees versus when they are, say, Troon example, employed. And to put that in perspective, I believe the city's taxes and benefits are around low 40s% of payroll. If that were in the private sector, or if that were Troon managed, typically that would be half that. So that's the kind of the benefits difference. Where we do see the outsourcing most commonly is in food and beverage. So that is quite common, where it's either self-operated or third-party management on the golf side, and a concessionaire model is quite common on food and beverage. It's less common to have the golf pro own the shop and the carts, and the city own basically the responsibility for maintaining the course. That is more of an antiquated model that is typically getting phased out.
And it looks like in your scenarios, and I'm in favor of the golf pro maintaining their lessons and pro shop revenue. So I like that aspect of it. And so I appreciate that. This is a good report, and I think that this report does highlight that we've had over the past 7 or 8 years a continually improved process, everything else, and I think we're going to take a big chunk out of this with some revenue, with some rate increases, and I appreciate that recommendation and the acknowledgement of what's happened.
And one thing I hope is not missed is that if it is TJ, he's going to need a shield, if you will, to bounce the arrows off at him, because it's any increases, nobody's gonna view rate increases as like, woohoo! Like, yeah, I get to pay more. And he is gonna be the face, for better or worse, he is gonna be the face and the person directly dealing with the customers who's gonna get the grief in the phone call. And he's gonna need some sort of support or backup as to creating a narrative as to why. We increased it to increase the sustainability, however we want to phrase that, either to fund an upcoming capital costs, which is mentioned. We don't know what that is, but if there's a narrative around an upcoming capital improvement, this is why rates are getting increased. He is going to need backup and support from the city on rate increases, because it's going to be viewed as like, TJ, what are you doing to us? Why are you raising all of our rates?
Tim?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Let me finish that up, and I
Go ahead.
apologize. And then so my last one on there is, and I appreciate you saying that because I agree 100%. Have we looked in here at a possible non-resident additional charge? And then, Becky, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. No, go ahead.
So I did not, in my scenario, I would say a non-resident component is an option. It gets
Complicated.
So I would flip that. I viewed it somewhat. So I viewed it as a resident structure, based on just how this is located, how the course is located in the geography. My hunch is that all season pass holders, I'm going to say all season pass holders are locals. And so I was looking at how do you charge do we, instead of a season pass program, do we eliminate that and charge a local rate, a resident versus a non-resident rate? I think the politics around eliminating the season pass program is probably not good. And in this case, how do you define non-resident in a small town? Is it of the county? It's going to be a bit too much of an administrative burden, I think, to implement a rate structure like that.
Okay, thank you.
Tim, I think that I would find it very valuable, and I hope that the council would allow this. I think that furthering this discussion needs to be furthered with the pro in the room. He has such good ideas that, to the best of my knowledge, really hasn't been entertained or listened to. So I think the next step in all of this, because he has mentioned about increasing the fees for quite a while. This is not something that anybody just pulled out of their awesome top hat. And so I think that we need to have some collaboration as a group. And to the best of my knowledge, TJ wasn't invited to this meeting. So, I didn't. So I would say that's in my recommendations is to have a discussion yes,
with TJ.
okay. So I think that would be the best.
Paragraph prior to scenario A.
I'm just trying to get to
agree.
step B. Like, this is step B is like, all right, let's get this solved in the room, because we have a contract that ends in 2 weeks. And I just think that that's D-Day. It's way too close to him operating without a contract and having to close up shop. So I'd like to see that this conversation continues with.
Of course. I think aligning. So I hope to go back to my goal is it what is sustainability to the city? Is it just reliability? More so like a reliable budget? Is it break even? Is it between where you're at today and break even? What is it?
I understand, you're put in a bad spot, and I'm looking at it from a larger city perspective. You're just looking at the golf course. I do respect that, but I think we just need to all get together and get TJ in the room and start hashing this out.
Do you have any input on my question as to how do you define sustainability?
Well, I didn't even know there was a problem to begin with, so I'm probably the bad person to ask. Maybe I'll deflect that to the rest of the council. So, we haven't had a lot of information. We haven't been given a lot of information from our leadership, and that's not your problem. But this has been a very frustrating subject, and I'm very passionate about it. And there are a lot of people in our community that are very upset with what's going on. So I think our next step is collaboration with the golf pro, because last I heard, the general consensus is we would like to keep him at Desert Canyon as our golf pro. And I was hoping he'd be here today, but he's teaching coach. He's teaching Tiger Golf. So I can't fully answer the sustainable.
This is not an indictment or a judgment. I hope the data was quite objective to show
It was, thank you.
Is significantly improved. It's undoubted.
Yes.
But I feel like I would appreciate your perspective and all of the council's perspective on how you define what the goal is for the golf course.
Well, I think that's where we all need to be able to get together and hash that out aside from this report.
So this is for step one. This is step one, Tim. We're gonna get together. We'll all get together. We'll get step two, step three, and then we'll try to have you in the room, get TJ in the room, and we'll all just sit down and have a good conversation.
And a city subsidy is not uncommon in municipal golf ownership, but being surprised by what the subsidy is every year is probably not a situation the council wants to be in. So if, regardless of the structure, the operating structure, whether it be a derivative of the current structure or a self-employed structure, I think the city needs, like was recently suggested, a budget creation process between both parties to kind of get a rough idea, what are we looking at in the future year, and what are the repercussions on either end if Mr. Gomez doesn't hold up his end of the bargain, or the city doesn't hold up their end of the bargain from an expense standpoint. What happens if either party doesn't meet those budgetary goals? What happens? I think those are key questions to answer as an outcome of that process.
So Tim, council's gonna get together. We'll talk about trying to get a meeting. I'll have Tiffany send out an invite to them, and then hopefully you'll be able to be available for that. And then we'll see if TJ can make that as well, and we'll go from there.
Can I ask a couple more
Yeah,
questions?
absolutely. Go ahead.
Tim, transitioning over to the Golf Pro contract a little bit, is I'm going to reference page 11 of your report. Part of my ignorance, I'm not a golfer at all. I used to mini golf when I was a kid. That's about it.
Okay.
But
save yourself the headache.
yeah. Can you help me explain like what normal is, or why our contract specifically gives 100% of range dues and fees to the Golf Pro? I understand the lessons and the merchandise 100%. The other ones I need a little help with.
So range, 100% of the revenue is not out of the ordinary. That typically, though, is counterbalanced by a percentage of range revenue paid back to the city or rent. So that is the only atypical part. Range 100% revenue is totally fine. It typically is just counterbalanced by some sort of expense on the golf course, and that counterbalance doesn't exist right now.
Can you give me an example of what you're talking about as a counterbalance?
The golf manager receives, I think in this case, it's roughly $25,000 $25,000 last year in range revenue. Typically, the structure would be 10% of range revenue comes back to the city. So in this case, it'd be $2,500. Or the golf pro pays the city rental fee of the range in the amount of X dollars annually. That can range anywhere from $500 to $2,000 annually. That depends on range volume. To put a $2,000 fee per month on a range that's generating $25,000 doesn't make sense. But if it's a percentage basis, that typically is how it's structured. Anywhere from 10 to 20% on range revenue depends on the size of the range.
Thank you. And then the dues and the fees?
Dues and fees, so that is something I believe TJ arranges, and that's more so from how I believe it was coded, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary there. I think that's to help with golf association fees and things like that. I didn't notice anything in.
It's his $500.
It seems very. I was not. That didn't set up any red flags as to what dues and fees were. It usually it represents quite an insignificant. Let's see.
I think that's the
so
IGA dues
1% of revenue.
for your handicap.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
this is IGA.
Yeah, so it's things like that, that city, the golf manager is able to coordinate. That's pretty common.
Okay. And then I'd like to continue a little further into one of your main points was optimized cart policy. What does that look like? I know we have like split ownership of the massive carts out there, and can somebody help me with the exact percentages of
I think it's like a 60 carts for TJ, I think, and like 20. He's added some
35 and
to his arsenal. I think for 80-20 from a percentage standpoint, if you want to look at in terms of inventory. So I think that's why he is receiving 80% of cart revenue, because that represents his percentage of the cart inventory.
80% of the ownership.
Right.
Now, what about like the maintenance, where the city has 100% of maintenance, and this is an assumption. I'm not speaking facts, but I'm guessing like 100% of gasoline costs as well for the carts. Where does
I would suspect TJ should be responsible for the gasoline for the carts. If he should, I believe he is.
100%?
Is he not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Glad I made it clear it was an assumption.
Yeah. Yep. He should. You could track gallons if you really wanted to. That gets really in the weeds. Even I should say it is atypical to even have a split ownership of the carts. You know, where it is 80-20 ownership.
That is typical or non-typical?
It's atypical.
Atypical, okay. So how do we find the fairness of 80% ownership, 80% of the sales, and the city has 100% of maintenance?
I think somebody should own 100% of either party should own 100% of the carts.
Okay.
And then be responsible for 100% of the maintenance?
Correct.
So Tim,
Yes.
Becky here again. You don't need to move it. It's okay, Tim. So were you privy to the lease agreement that TJ sent over on May 22nd that increased his range fees, that increased that giving money to the city? He increased the cart fees, 75 to him, 25 to the city. Were you privy to that? So TJ's actually already started
Was that in the you're talking about it in his proposal, correct?
Well, I'm going to assume it's his proposal, but I'm just asking, so were you privy to that information that TJ was already trying to work through some of these things, giving range revenue to the city, increasing his cart fee revenue to the city? Were you aware of that?
I was made aware that at the end, so that was part of an email, I believe, in the proposed 2023 structure.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So you could at least try to see that it's not just one-sided. I mean, there's been some. Yeah.
I don't believe. No, I don't take it that way.
Okay.
I just think it is.
I agree with you on the carts. That's wrong.
To describe this would be messy. It's
Yes,
very messy
I agree.
in terms of how it is structured. It should be cleaner
Okay, I agree.
in terms of who owns what and who's responsible for what. And
Yes.
right now, that's not the case.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you on that.
Mayor, I'd like to point out that at this moment in time, I'm in favor of like a scenario A option, looking more specifically at that than scenario B.
Okay.
That's just me, by myself. And I,
Tweaking, okay.
maintaining the,
Tweaking the existing structure.
existing structure, thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I'm glad Councilman Garvey agrees with me, although I haven't said it yet, that I think the cart system is wonky and we need to fix that. 80, 20, 100, 100, I don't know. Obviously, that's between us and him, right?
It is, yeah, so typically that would look like TJ buying the city's carts off of the city, or the city buying TJ's carts off of him.
Well, I'm gonna put it on the record now that it's not a good idea for the city to get rid of our carts, because if he leaves the contract, we have nothing.
Correct, yeah, but that would be kind of the ownership structure, or everybody sells all their carts, and somebody goes into an operating lease. Like, so we're ownership, so that would be an alternate option. Responsibility should still be 100% either way, but instead of ownership risk, you offload ownership risk onto the cart manufacturer. You can go into a 5-year operating lease, it's a capital lease basically, where typically at the end of 5 years you can buy the carts for typically $1 fair market value, but then the maintenance, repairs and maintenance can tend to then be on the onus of the cart manufacturer. And you can have the opportunity to get new updated carts each year, or not each year, each lease cycle, substantiating why you're charging more for carts. So the higher quality of the cart, the higher the cart fee should be, typically too. And so that's just another way to structure it.
I haven't heard of one specifically like that for golf carts before, but do they send a near full-time mechanic to our golf course, or however much time is required?
It would be on an as-needed basis. So typically someone will either come out or they will come pick up the cart to fix it and return it to the golf course.
We wouldn't be responsible to transport them to a maintenance facility, would we?
No.
No?
No, that's the benefit.
Okay.
No, that's the benefit of a lease structure.
Okay. Man, I think we're on a good track too. I think the POS system is absolutely vital to track the shared expenses, what's coming in, what's going out for our own budget purposes. I don't know. We haven't talked cost at all.
No. That I understand. And in the meantime, I can speak with Golf now to kind of ask about your scenario about the merchandise, how that would look.
Okay.
I'll give them a call so next time we convene, I can have an answer for you. One thing more broad, even on point of sale system, I think we didn't really discuss T-sheet, online T-sheet. Right now, really tea times are made via phone for the most part, or walk-in to the shop. TJ already operates a quite lean operation. The amount of time that either he or a shop worker is answering the phone to look and scan the available T-sheet, put it in, it may be a little bit of an upfront investment by everybody to put an online T-sheet in place, but all the time they will not be on the phone. If we channel folks through an online T platform, frees up their time to elevate that customer experience, because they can focus on the customer that's right in front of them at the shop versus the one just on the phone. And by now, most folks are used to doing most transactions online, and that should not be too significant of an ask from a customer base.
And save staff time.
The T-sheets is within the POS system. Yeah. Is that right?
Yes, it is. It's all one system.
And that's normally got the prepaid green fee in the POS system for the tea times, correct?
Yep, and it can be structured as static. It doesn't. Most people think of golf now as dynamic pricing, but it can be static, set to city policies.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay, any more more questions for Tim for right now, or are we all good for right now?
We're good for now.
All right, Tim, I appreciate your time. We'll get back with you. Tip's gonna, we got one more thing on the agenda we need to take care of, but we'll reach back out to you with a time and date, and hopefully you can make it, and hopefully we get TJ with us as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity.
Have a good day, Tim.
Yep.
All right,
Thank
let's
you.
run down to action item number 2, deliberation decision approving the memorandum of understanding between the ITD Office of Highway Safety and Mountain Home Police Department.
Mayor,
Councilman Brennan,
I just make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with ITD and Mountain Home PD.
it's been motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Councilman Green? Aye. Councilman Buddy? Aye. Councilman Brennan? Aye. Councilman Garvey?
Aye.
Awesome. All right, meeting adjourned.